Lalisa Manobal of Blackpink didn't chase Hollywood that year. Hollywood adjusted to Lisa. In 2026, the shift didn't arrive as a headline or a press release. It surfaced in subtler ways, in timing, in closed rooms that quietly reordered their priorities, in moments where the camera no longer searched for her because it already knew where to point. Something unmistakable had changed when Hollywood began moving around one name instead of the other way around. Not louder, not reactive, just inevitable. At first, most people thought it was just another strong run, another big year, another idol crossing over. But that explanation didn't last very long. Because what unfolded wasn't a series of appearances. It was a pattern. The kind of pattern that only becomes obvious after it's already changed the rules. She wasn't everywhere at once. She was exactly where influence concentrates before it becomes obvious to the public. That's how dominance actually works. Quiet first, loud later. What made it feel unsettling was how calm it all looked. No overexposure. No frantic promotion. No need to explain relevance. Lisa's presence in Hollywood spaces didn't feel like a guest pass anymore. It felt structural. Like someone who understood not just performance, but positioning. Not just visibility, but leverage. In an industry that measures power through brand value and long-term return, that matters more than applause. Every appearance carried weight because it didn't feel like it needed validation. Fashion didn't treat her as a muse. It treated her as a multiplier. Entertainment didn't frame her as a novelty. It framed her as a bridge. That's when people inside the industry start using different language. They stop talking about moments and start talking about impact. About reach. About how one presence can tilt an entire global market conversation. The interesting part is that none of this required reinvention. Lisa didn't suddenly become someone else. She simply leaned into a version of herself that translated across systems. Music, fashion, culture, and commerce all speak different dialects, but they respond to the same signal when it's strong enough. Confidence without explanation. Control without noise. That's not talent alone. That's strategy, whether intentional or instinctive. While all of this was happening, something else was quietly confusing fans. Because as Lisa's momentum became impossible to ignore, another absence began to feel louder by contrast. Rose wasn't failing. She wasn't falling behind. But she wasn't occupying the same visual space, and in an attention economy, silence gets misread faster than mistakes. People started asking the wrong questions. Where is she? Why isn't she there? Did something stall? The truth is, Hollywood loves momentum stories, but it rarely teaches audiences how timing actually works. Visibility is not the same as value. Presence is not the same as positioning. While Lisa's year looked explosive, Rose looked restrained, almost withdrawn. But restraint is not retreat when it's intentional. In fact, in high-level creative industries, restraint often signals a different kind of preparation. Rose Blackpink has always operated on a slower burn, where Lisa's influence moves through scale and immediacy. Rose's strength has always lived in precision, tone, emotional credibility, the kind of trust that doesn't spike overnight but compounds over time. In 2026, that difference stopped being subtle, and instead of explaining it, the industry let it play out. There was a moment halfway through the year when insiders started reframing the narrative. Not publicly, quietly. Conversations shifted from absence to alignment. From why now to why later. Because Rose's choices weren't about volume. They were about context. About entering spaces when they amplify meaning instead of diluting it. That's when it started to make sense. Lisa and Rose weren't moving in opposite directions. They were operating on different curves. One was accelerating visibility. The other was consolidating identity. Both strategies have different revenue timelines, different investment implications, and different long-term brand outcomes. The mistake is assuming they should look the same. Lisa's 2026 wasn't just successful because of exposure. It was successful because it converted attention into influence. Brands don't just look at reach anymore. They look at conversion of perception. Does this person move culture, or just reflect it? Lisa moved it. She became a signal to investors, designers and executives that alignment with her wasn't about trend chasing. It was about future-proofing relevance. Rose, on the other hand, was building something less visible but no less valuable. Emotional equity, artistic credibility that ages well. In a market obsessed with speed, she was investing in durability. That kind of positioning doesn't explode. It settles. And when it does emerge, it tends to stay longer than people expect. By the time the year began closing, the confusion started dissolving. Not because Rose suddenly appeared everywhere, but because the industry adjusted its lens. People realized they had been measuring her with the wrong ruler. She wasn't absent. She was selective. And selectivity, when paired with consistency, is one of the most powerful tools in the influence economy. What made this contrast compelling wasn't rivalry. It was complement. Two artists from the same origin, navigating the same global system, choosing entirely different paths and succeeding on their own terms. That's rare. And it's educational, whether fans realize it or not. It shows how careers don't scale in one direction. They branch. Lisa's dominance in 2026 didn't overshadow Rose. It reframed her. It forced audiences to confront a deeper question about success itself. Is it louder, or is it longer? Is it immediate reaction, or lasting resonance? Hollywood tends to reward both, but not at the same time. What most people don't realize is that this tension between loud success and lasting success isn't unique to entertainment. It's the same dilemma faced by entrepreneurs deciding between rapid growth and sustainable margins, by brands choosing between hype-driven campaigns and long-term trust, by creators who must decide whether to feed the algorithm today or build something that still matters years from now. Lisa and Rose just happen to live that dilemma in public, under the harshest spotlight imaginable. Lisa's path showed what happens when momentum, clarity, and global appeal align at the same time. Everything compounds faster. Attention turns into leverage. Leverage turns into influence. Influence opens doors that don't usually open for artists who are still being evaluated. By 2026, she wasn't being assessed for potential anymore. She was being treated as infrastructure. Someone you build around, not experiment with. That kind of status doesn't come from talent alone. It comes from repeated proof that every move adds value to the system she touches. Rosé's trajectory, by contrast, highlighted something more uncomfortable for modern audiences: the power of patience. In a culture trained to equate silence with decline, her quieter presence challenged that assumption. She wasn't withdrawing from relevance. She was protecting it, choosing moments where her voice wouldn't be drowned out by noise, where her work wouldn't be reduced to a clip or a headline, but experienced as intention. That kind of discipline is rare, especially when visibility is always available and temptation is constant. Over time, these two approaches began to illuminate each other. Lisa's dominance gave context to Rosé's restraint. Rosé's restraint gave depth to Lisa's dominance. Together, without standing side by side, they revealed how success at the highest level is less about competition and more about coherence. Knowing who you are, knowing what lane you're in, and resisting the pressure to copy someone else's pace just because it looks louder from the outside. Hollywood, despite its obsession with novelty, ultimately responds to clarity. It rewards people who understand not just what they can do, but when and why to do it. That's why both paths worked. They were aligned with the individual behind them. And that alignment is what audiences feel, even when they can't articulate it yet. In the end, 2026 didn't give a simple answer to whether louder or longer is better. It exposed the real truth. The most powerful careers are the ones that know the difference and have the courage to choose accordingly. By the end of it all, the narrative that stuck wasn't about who did more. It was about who understood the game they were playing. Lisa played expansion. Rose played precision. Both required confidence. Both carried risk. And both revealed something important about how modern celebrity, business, and identity intersect at the highest level. If there's a lesson hiding inside this year, it's not about comparison. It's about awareness. About knowing when to step forward and when to hold back. About recognizing that influence isn't always visible in real time, but it always leaves a trace. And once you learn how to see that trace, You start noticing stories other people scroll past. That's the kind of story worth paying attention to. And if this shift made you see their journeys differently, there's more nuance like this unfolding quietly across the industry every year. Sometimes all it takes is slowing down long enough to notice. If you appreciate this kind of deeper perspective, tap like to let me know, subscribe for more exclusive insights like this, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story before everyone else catches up.